Morning, all. All right, so yesterday I did Anaheim and Arizona. Today it's Boston, and then it will be Buffalo. Now, Boston is a tough call. Boston's a tough call because I still think that Boston's best chance to win another cup was in 2019. And since then, they've got eliminated from the second round twice. And I think while they're still a good team, they should still be a playoff team. I don't see them as being at that same level as Tampa Bay and as some of the others in the East. The East is going to be tough. So, and the Atlantic, what's interesting to me is that, there's two teams that you can argue aren't really in the hunt this year, but there's four that should be very good, and then there's two that could surprise. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough division to call, but I'm doing my best to do so. Now, special teams wise, Boston was excellent during the regular season. 21.9% on the power play, which was 10th. 86% even on the penalty kill, which was second overall in the NHL. But when you look at their goals for, they had 164, which was 14th. So their attack was about middle of the pack. Goals against, 134, which was fourth. So their defense, their goaltending, did a lot to bring them to the dance and get them as far as they went. And there are questions about both, which I have, and I'm sure other people have as well. So the interesting thing to me, too, with Boston is this is a team that went through almost a retool. And the thing is, they didn't have top 10 picks. And let's take a look. So 2015 is the one everybody talks about, right? That's the year that Zboril goes 13th, DeBrusk goes 14th, Senyshyn goes 15th, and guys who arguably could find their way into the Hall of Fame someday are taken afterwards, through a lot of the rest of that round. But in the second round, they get Carlo at 37 and Lauzon at 52. Now, of course, Lauzon has made his exit this year, but I think Boston does pretty well in the second round. So 2016... McAvoy's drafted in the first round and 14th pick. Very good pick. Frederick drafted 29th. Hasn't really turned out the way that he was envisioned when he was drafted, but still useful utility player. And then Ryan Lindgren drafted 49th. I kind of wish they'd held on to him, to be honest. 2017, Vakanainen goes 18th overall. Studnicka, 53rd. So again, second round, Boston's pretty good. And Jeremy Swayman, 111th overall in 2017. 2018, they drafted Axel Anderson at 57. That's the earliest pick they had. Beecher was their number 30 pick in 2019. He is one of their top prospects at this point. 2020, they only had 4 picks. This year, they had 7, including Lysell, who they did sign to an entry-level contract already. So when we look at the exits and the new faces, so Krejci is gone, and I really believing that this is a major difference maker for the Boston Bruins. Krejci, there were times where he didn't live up to that previous contract, but even then, he was still a decent second-line center. It hurts losing Krejci and not having an obvious pick for second-line center for them. Rask, Halak, they're both gone. Rask may very well end up coming back during the season at some point. However, the earliest he would come back is January. So it's going to be a young, inexperienced duo that's tending the net for them until then, if that happens. And again, this is one of the reasons why I look at Boston and say they could be a surprise in how good they are, or they could be a surprise in that they could be a team that bottoms out, right? So Ritchie is gone as well. He goes to Toronto. Corrali's gone. Lauzon's gone off to Seattle. Kevin Miller retires. Andre Kasha off to Toronto as well. Only played 3 games this past season. He needs to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, he can be a scorer. I swear he can. The new faces they have, I like signing Howla. I think that was a good move. Foligno's a good veteran ad. Nosek, Forbert, Olmark. However, I do think what they lost compared with what they've gained, I think there's an issue there. And we'll see whether or not that all adds up. I like Linus Olmark. I've been an Olmark fan for a few years now. And it could work out great for him in Boston, but we'll see, right? He will be behind a team that you would think would be better defensively than Buffalo. I think I can say that and not cause any controversy here. So the last 3 years, Boston was 49, 24, 9 in 2018, 2019. Second in the Atlantic. 2019, 2020, 44, 14, and 12. 12 overtime loss points gets them the President's Trophy and first in the Atlantic. And, of course, eliminated out of the playoffs. 2020, 2021, 33, 16, and 7, and they were third in the East. And I thought during the season there were points where there were some cracks that showed, and we'll see whether or not those are repaired this year. They go to the finals in 2019, lost to St. Louis. They lost in the second round against Tampa in 2020, and they lost in the second round against the Islanders in 2021. So for Boston, we'll see whether or not they bounce back this season. But again, I think in the Atlantic, you've got Tampa, who have to be seen as still regular season, they should be the best. And I really think Florida is looking to add on to the season they had last year. Once they get to Florida, I think people will start to see if you didn't pay a lot of attention to Florida last year, they have a very talented and deep lineup. And I think that becomes pretty obvious when you look at their depth chart. So on the Boston side, when it comes to forwards, you've got Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak. We know that line will score. We know that line has great chemistry. After that, there are some reasons to shrug and go, I don't know what's going to happen here. Taylor Hall, great after the trade deadline. Absolutely. Great chemistry with Krejci. Won't have Krejci there. Does Coyle end up centering that second line? I don't know. I get the feeling it'll be somebody else. I get the feeling Coyle ends up on the third line. Craig Smith, Howla, of course, added. Nosek added. Foligno. DeBrusk. And I've got an asterisk next to DeBrusk because I still don't think that Boston keeps him going into next season. I still get the feeling he ends up moving on. If he doesn't, he could be a wild card because if he bounces back and finds this goal scoring, it could go a long way to fixing the attack that was sometimes anemic last year. Lazar, Wagner, Kuhlman, Frederick, Studnicka. Studnicka as well could be a wild card. I didn't put arrows up or down with Boston because I mean, a lot of the younger players probably don't play a lot, so I don't expect a lot more out of them. And the veterans, we're not seeing any decline from Bergeron. It's strange. And Senyshyn, of course, there still stands out as a first-round pick. However, he is still, fringe NHLer. Maybe it works out at some point. Maybe this is the year. On the blue line, again, it's a very good blue line, I think. However, you've got Grzelcyk and McAvoy. You've got Riley. I like Riley. I like what he did after the deadline. You've got Carlo. Love Carlo. Forbert, Clifton, Sporil, Moore. Moore, of course, still listed as injured reserve on Cap Friendly. And Vakanainen. The question mark I have with this blue line is, outside of McAvoy, who is a fantastic talent, I'm not sure where the offense comes from on the blue line. And it's the exact same issue I had with the team last year, and they got through it. And now, without Lauzon, without Miller, there's a little bit of a hit to the depth. They do pick up Forbert, but again, it just feels like they erode a little bit more depth each year. And I ask myself, so did they bring Chara back? Did they find a way to bring Chara back to retire as a Bruin, to add him to this blue line to try to, get things stuck together properly? We'll see. Then in net, there is some reason for concern. Not because Ullmark and Swayman aren't good goaltenders. They are. There's a reason I got a Boston jersey with Swayman on the back. I believe in the kid. But we haven't seen Swayman and Ullmark as a tandem. Obviously, Ullmark hasn't played in Boston yet. And Swayman's experience level is still low. And then you've got Grosnick as the number 3 guy. Unless Callum Booth has become the number 3 guy now that Vladar's gone. But I do have some questions. With this goaltending. Prospects, not a lot here in terms of guys who might make it. Fabian Lysell, who was a 21st overall pick this year. They did send him to an entry-level contract. They may look to see how far out he is, whether or not he might get a couple of games this year. And John Beecher I've got on the list because he's a higher-end prospect who is not signed to an entry-level contract. Not playing in the NHL as of yet. I would think more along the lines of next year. Beecher is a center. They may envision him as someday being a second-line center. But again, if Bergeron starts to age, and I know that's a crazy idea that Bergeron would age, but if he starts to age at some point, Boston has a problem down the middle. They have major issue down the middle if Bergeron starts to show signs of actually aging. And this year, the other thing is, Bergeron does tend to have, over an 82 game schedule. You can count on him probably being hurt 5 or 6 games. Now they don't have Krejci to step into that top line. Krejci would step into that top line and did very well in the absence of Bergeron. If Bergeron gets hurt, now it becomes a much more painful injury than it was before. So we'll see how it goes. Their schedule in October, they open the season at home against Dallas on the 16th, so that's a win for me as a fan. Then they go to Philadelphia on the 20th. They go to Buffalo 2 days after. On the 24th, they're at home against San Jose. Then they go to Florida on the 27th, Carolina on the 28th, and then they're at home against Florida on the 30th. So they have Florida twice in October. So we could start to see as early as late October Boston, Florida, and see how that battle's going to go throughout the year. Of course, they only play each other 4 times, so they only have 2 more matchups after October. But I do think they'll be fighting with each other throughout the season for who's going to be likely second or third in that division. Their current odds for the Stanley Cup, 12-1. They are 4th. I think a lot of this is, it's Boston, right? It's Boston. They're expected to be really good. And even though their goaltenders are gone and they've lost their second line center, they're still going to be a team that people bet on for the Stanley Cup because it's the Bruins. Last Stanley Cup, of course, was 2011, which is now over 10 years ago. My prediction is I think they're 3rd in the Atlantic. But again, the Atlantic is going to be a dogfight. I think we're going to see a very small separation between potentially 1st and 4th. I think 1st through 4th could be very close. And again, whoever's in 5th place might claw themselves close to. And with the Atlantic having Detroit, having Buffalo, did these teams get points against those bottom teams that maybe help them in a wild card situation eliminate the 4th place team in the Metro? So we'll see. I know the Metro Division teams have very good records over the years, but it's something I'm thinking for this year could end up happening. We'll see. But for Boston, I think this is an interesting year. I've been saying for a while, I think Boston's going to find themselves in a position where they have to do a retool or a rebuild soonish. And the departures for this past offseason, well, this current offseason, may make that difference, maybe that tipping point. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.